The Hinterkaifeck murders. On the night of March 31st, 1922, one of the most disturbing crimes in European history took place on a remote farmstead in Bavaria, Germany. 6 people were brutally murdered in what would later become known as the Hinterkaifeck murders. A case so unsettling that more than a century later, it remains officially unsolved. The farm, known as Hinterkaifeck, sat isolated between small villages, surrounded by dense forest and open fields. Reaching it required traveling down a narrow dirt road, far from neighbors or regular visitors. It was the kind of place where silence dominated and where anything unusual would stand out immediately. The residents of the farm were Andreas Gruber, a stern and controlling man in his 60s, his wife, Cecilia, their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 young children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and a newly hired maid named Maria Baumgartner. Months before the murders, Andreas Gruber began noticing strange and deeply unsettling events around the property. After a snowfall, he discovered footprints leading from the forest directly to the house, but none leading back. Keys to the farmhouse went missing and later reappeared without explanation. Tools vanished and were later found returned to their original places. Most disturbing of all were the sounds. Gruber reported hearing footsteps coming from the attic late at night. When he investigated, he found nothing. No intruder, no signs of forced entry. Despite growing paranoia, he never contacted the police. In fact, Gruber dismissed the fears of others. The previous maid had quit the job months earlier, claiming the house was haunted and that something evil lived there. Her warnings were ignored. On March 31st, 1922, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at the farm. It was her very first day. She had barely unpacked her belongings. That same night, the murders began. Evidence later showed that members of the family were lured one by one into the barn. There, they were attacked with a mattock, a heavy farming tool capable of delivering devastating blows. Andreas, his wife, and Victoria were killed in succession. Each body was carefully placed and covered with hay. The 7-year-old girl was still alive after the attack. She survived for hours, pulling out clumps of her own hair before finally dying from her injuries. After killing the family members in the barn, the murderer entered the house. The maid was killed in her bed, still wearing her work clothes. The 2-year-old child was murdered in his crib. What happened next is what makes this case truly horrifying. The killer did not flee. In the days following the murders, someone remained on the farm. Livestock was fed, meals were prepared and eaten. Smoke was seen rising from the chimney. Neighbors later confirmed that nothing appeared out of place at first glance. Several days passed before suspicion grew. When neighbors finally entered the property, they discovered the bodies in the barn and alerted authorities. The crime scene was chaotic. Villagers walked through the house. Evidence was touched, moved, and contaminated. By the time police arrived, crucial details had already been destroyed. Investigators found the murder weapon hidden in the attic, the same attic where Andreas Gruber had heard footsteps. Despite massive public interest, hundreds of interviews, and numerous suspects, no one was ever charged. Theories ranged from family disputes to secret lovers, disgruntled neighbors, and even the possibility that the killer had lived among them unnoticed. The farm was demolished the following year. Today, all that remains is a small memorial marking where the house once stood. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in history, not only because of the brutality, but because of the terrifying possibility that killer was never far away and may have been watching long before the first blow was struck.